Not every parent knows that the talk is like a thing of the past. This idea that we sit down with our kids and have one major talk where we demonstrate how to use a condom and, give them information on sexually transmitted infections and pregnancy prevention, and it's over. That's not quite going to cut it anymore. If you're new here, I'm Kathleen. I make videos on a regular basis for parents on how to have the modern day sex talks. In this video, I'm going to give you the 4 top sex talks. If you don't have the time to go through every facet of human sexuality with your kid, which granted, many parents don't, including myself, right? You don't have to go through it all. We just need to give our kids the information necessary so that they can make healthy sexual decisions in the future. To be completely transparent, when I was a sex ed teacher, we didn't talk about every facet of human sexuality either in the sex ed class. We just didn't have the time. We covered the most important stuff that was mandatory to be covered at that age, at that grade level in sex ed. I was teaching in the late 2000s, and consent language and consent talks were a very, very small portion of the sex ed class, if there was time to even cover that. We didn't have enough time in the classroom to cover everything. And so I don't want parents to feel like you have to cover every single topic at the right age in an age-appropriate way in order to build out the talks. Yes, that is great. And if you can and are willing to put in the time and effort to get prepared to do that, I will happily help you. But if you're I just want to give them the basics, I want them to be able to make healthy decisions, I want them to take care of their body and their sexual health, I can help you do that as well. Now, I really do want you to have at least these 4 sex talks, okay? So in order to help you in having these talks, I created a free guide for you called the Sex Talk Starter Pack. And it builds upon all of the information that I'm about to share here in this video. If you find something in this video to be helpful, the Sex Talk Starter Pack is going to expand upon it. So go into the description, find Sex Talk Starter Pack, and download the free guide. In order to simplify these 4 major sex talks that I encourage every parent to have, I break them down into age range. So there's 1 talk per age range. So the first age range that I encourage parents to start having the sex talks is the primary age, and this is ages 4, 5, and 6. In the primary age, your kid is questioning their world. They're noticing things and asking you questions. And so there's a lot of things that I recommend in the primary age that you can do that can help to set a solid foundation for the future sex talks in the intermediate, middle, and high school age. But the major sex talk that I encourage every parent to have in the primary age is the Where Do Babies Come From talk. If you want to learn the layering method to the Where Do Babies Come From talk, I am hosting a live webinar in January. The link is in the description. This will be the last live webinar for the Where Do Babies Come From talk because I am incorporating it into my Top Talks course. So if you're not quite ready to join the Top Talks course, but you still want to know how to layer the Where Do Babies Come From talk in an age-appropriate way that builds up to having the sex talk in the intermediate age, then get into the description, click on the link to the live webinar, and join today. So that's the first sex talk that I encourage parents to have because it really does lead into the second major talk. The second major talk occurs during the intermediate age, and the intermediate age is ages 7, 8, and 9. And in the intermediate age is when I recommend that parents have the sex talk. The sex talk is where you will actually explain what is sex. Now, there's a few reasons why I put the sex talk in the intermediate age. And the first one being is that it's completely age appropriate. All of my age recommendations for the sex talks are based off of the World Health Organization's technical guidelines on sexuality education. Now, there are guidelines in the US and Canada, Australia, and in the UK as well, just to name a few, but I like to base it off of the World Health Organization's guidelines because most of those countries also base their national guidelines off of the World Health Organization's guidelines. And because I've worked with parents in over 80 countries all around the globe, I really just find using international guidelines to be just more accessible instead of being US-centric. And the second reason why I encourage parents to have the sex talk during the intermediate age is because kids hear the word sex. They hear it in movies or in songs or just in passing, and they wonder, what's sex? And third, it's for CSA prevention, child sexual abuse prevention. It has been shown time and time again that kids who are not well educated around their bodies and sex and privacy and private parts are more likely to become a victim of child sexual abuse than a child who is educated on that. So if you have a kid that is about to turn 10 years old and you have not had the sex talk, go download the Sex Talk Starter Pack and find out how to get that talk started. Now it's time for the third major sex talk. And this sex talk I encourage parents to have at some point during the middle school age, which is ages 10, 11, and 12. Now, if you're like many of the parents that I work with, the masturbation talk is the one that most parents push back. They're like, why do I even need to go into that? Won't they just figure that out on their own? And the answer is they're not going to figure it out on their own. They're going to learn about masturbation from somewhere, something, or someone. Why not it be you? And I know why you're pushing back on having this talk, because when it comes to masturbation, there's no reproduction component to talk about. It's simply a behavior that people do for pleasure. People masturbate because it feels good, and to tell your kid that feels really awkward. When I was in the classroom and I would explain what masturbation is, kids had loads of questions about it because they had heard lots and lots of myths. They would ask me, they would be like, Miss Kathleen, is it true that if you masturbate too much, you're going to grow hair on your palms? Or is it true that if you masturbate too much, you'll go blind? And these were those myths around it because masturbation has not really been talked about in an open and honest way. And there's been a lot of shame, embarrassment, and stigma associated with masturbating. So parents, yes, I encourage you to have the masturbation talk. Dispel these myths. Eliminate that shame or stigma around masturbation. Make sure that your child has accurate information about this behavior. And it also gives you an opportunity to share your family values around what you believe around masturbation. So if you're keeping track, we've gone through 3 out of the 4 major sex talks. The first one was where do babies come from? The second was the sex talk. The third was the masturbation talk. And now it's time for the 4th major talk. And this talk, I usually recommend to parents to have in the high school age, ages 13, 14, and 15. But due to a variety of circumstances beyond our control, especially due to technology and ease of access, some parents are starting to find that they're having this talk in the middle school age. It's the porn talk. When it comes to the porn talk, for many parents, there's a lot of values and beliefs around porn that they want to share with their child. And many will tend to jump to that and talk about their values on why they don't want their child to watch porn or why they don't think porn should exist or any of those values and beliefs that they have that they feel very strongly about. Now, I recommend to parents to put their values and beliefs aside for a moment. I mean, you absolutely will get to share your values and beliefs around porn, but it's really important that your kid has accurate information around what porn is, why it's made, and who watches it. There's also going to be a layer around porn literacy education in the porn talk as well. We don't exactly know how porn is going to affect or have an impact on an individual's future relationships or sexuality. But we do know that it is something that can be very stimulating, very engaging to watch, and to an underdeveloped brain, it can have some major impacts. Now, the other day I had a mom reach out to me, and she's a mom to a 5-year-old, and she reached out to me kind of like in a panic, and she was like, Kathleen, I don't know how to go about having this sex talk with my child. And I said, oh, okay, no problems. What is it? I'm happy to help. And she's like, how do I explain porn to my 5-year-old? And I'm thinking, you don't explain porn to your 5-year-old because it's not an age-appropriate sex talk. When we start to hear things from the news, when we start to read, blogs and all these parenting experts telling us that porn is everywhere, our kids are inundated with it, we need to start talking about it. We have these parents who, like this mom, really want to do a good job, and it makes them think they need to have a porn talk with their 5-year-old. And that's just simply not true. So the beauty of the 4 major sex talks that I recommend parents to have is that they go in a progression. If you start off with your 5-year-old explaining where do babies come from and providing all of the layers, you will quickly realize that you don't need to be having a porn talk at that age. There's lots of other talks to be having. So if you're ready to dive in, if you're ready to get started and have one of these sex talks with your kids, then download the Sex Talk Starter Pack today. It is chock full of information and ready to help you initiate one of these talks. Now, of course, there are more sex talks to be had. All right. That is clear. These are just the 4 major sex talks, but there are lots of other sex talks that I talk about all the time right here on this channel. So if you are a parent and you are looking to have age-appropriate, medically accurate sex talks with your kid, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I want to help you get prepared and have successful sex talks. So whether that's by just simply subscribing and watching videos here or joining my Top Talks course, I am looking forward to seeing you feel confident delivering the sex talks to your kid.